Hello, welcome back. This is video number 2. I'm Catherine Kleingartner, 60 Hearts, a Roadmap Through Grief. This is video 2. It's good to see you again. Thank you so much for posting your stories from a couple of weeks ago on our private Facebook page. I was able to read all of them. I applaud your courage. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. It's amazing how much we have in common. I appreciate the sense of community and that we aren't alone. Hope you appreciate that too. Today, what we're going to discuss is a couple of things. One, we're going to talk about kind of the ways that we might be behaving that don't feel normal to us. A little bit of that, kind of that sense of like, who am I? Or I've lost my sense of self, or I'm just not me right now. And we're going to talk about some of the reasons that might be true. We're going to talk about the brain a little bit. And then we're going to talk about some things we can do about it to help ourselves during this foggy time. Great. So at first, if you recall in video 1, I told you about how I was really short-fused. I think I told you I went in for a massage, and the spa that I went to didn't have my appointment on the books, and I was just devastated with, not within the normal range of a response. A few more examples of ways in which I was not myself after the loss of my mom to suicide. I remember needing to shut down her cable. So I had to call the cable company and be on hold forever for maybe 40 minutes, and I was sort of miserable anyway because I was grieving, and I was just agitated as all get out for being on hold, first and foremost. Secondly, when the guy came onto the phone, he said, he kind of didn't, want to know why he was disconnecting, and I really wasn't wanting to be terribly open about my experience. So before actually being willing to disconnect the cable, he tried to upgrade the account, and I just went ballistic. I told him he needed sensitivity training, and I just went off on him, and the poor guy's just doing his job, right? He needs to make his numbers and all this and that, and I was out of line, and honestly, this just wasn't me. So there was that. When I had to, so my brother-in-law, when he passed away, he was in a foreign country, and I had to go with my husband to airport cargo place to pick up his remains, and the same thing happened. I thought the guy was insensitive. He kind of was, but rather than just kind of quietly letting him know I'd appreciate better service, I went off on him. I seem to really gravitate towards the phrase, you need sensitivity training, when I'm having a meltdown. So start to become aware of what kinds of phrases or thoughts you might have when you're really, what I might say is vomiting your emotions all over the place. Mine seemed to be, you don't understand, and you need sensitivity training. So give yourself a little time to think about that and put some notes in your journal. If you can think of ways in which you've been short-tempered, short-fused, what the whole scenario was, and maybe visualize yourself in the future, just getting off the line or whatever you need to do to not let someone have it who probably doesn't deserve it. There is an explanation. So we aren't entirely to blame for the way we're behaving during this time. There's an explanation. I'm going to give you an image. I want you to, you can even close your eyes if you want. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to create an image for you. I want you to imagine the Wild West, just open land, beautiful landscape, dust. A wild herd of mavericks is pounding across this open range. And they are moving together like a big ocean. They're unified, they're common in their goal. They have a clear path in front of them and they're moving towards something. They're doing that together and they're doing it with intention. And they're doing it with abandonment and with just utter beauty. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, they come upon an obstacle, a life-threatening obstacle. And they stop. In order to survive, they now have to stop right in midstream and turn around. A great, big, massive herd of horses in the wild have to just turn around. They have lost their sense of direction. They've lost their unity, their purpose. They have to reconfigure, and they have to figure out what to do next. This was not what they planned on, and they really don't have a whole lot of time to figure it out. So that's the image, and that is exactly what's happening with your neurotransmitters in your brain after a significant loss. At some point, they're organized, they're unified, they've got a purpose, a direction, a goal. They're moving along like that herd of horses, doing great. Something just pops up and sends everything into disarray. Your brain has to literally reconfigure. It can't continue on the same path it was on. And there is dysregulation. There is this period of lack of clarity literally in your brain. Have you ever heard of chemo brain? This is when people are undergoing treatment for illness. They are now warned that their brains might not be working the same way as a result of the treatment, and they might go home and burn a pot of soup or, just spill an entire container of hot chocolate on the couch. Very forgetful. Same as when you come home with a newborn from the hospital, a new mother, just in the same space with the brain as we are when we're grieving. Multitasking becomes super difficult. There are actual memory losses, lapses, not losses, but lapses, forgetfulness, absent-mindedness, and utter fatigue. So that's a real physiological conundrum that we're in. That's what we're going through in addition to dealing with the actual loss and all that it means to not have what we previously had in our lives. We now have a physiological change going on as our brain starts to try to reconfigure, taking in this new experience as our new normal. So you can see we deserve some grace for our erratic behavior, for our short fuse, and for our ability to burst out crying whenever and wherever we hear a song, or we have a smell, or we see somebody, or we see something that reminds us. We deserve grace, and we need to be patient with ourselves and let ourselves off the hook. And we can always apologize if we need to later, much later, years later, if that's the way it is. It's all okay. I would like to challenge you during this time, if you're in an acute state of grief, to recognize that you are almost synonymous with being in intensive care. You're not in the hospital, but you do require that much care. So you can either ask others for care. If you've been grieving for a while and you just feel like, ugh, I'm so tired of asking people for stuff. Well, I'm glad we're together. And also, you can start creating some care situations as simple as evaluating whether or not you want to do a thing and bowing out if you don't feel like it, giving yourself permission to not participate in something that feels hard or might trigger grief. Or if you're going to be around people you don't feel completely comfortable with, you can give yourself some grace there as well. Have you ever heard of an energy budget? So I'm a coach. I coach people for a living. I do this. I take care of people and help people. And one of the things I'm really fond of is to think of our energy output with it for a given day in the same way that we think about our money. That ideally we have more energy coming in, more money coming in than we have going out. And that way we'll always have enough resources to accomplish what we need to or want to accomplish. So energy. It matters if you're an introvert or an extrovert by nature. Are you fueled by people? Are you drained by people? You have to start to think about how you receive energy and how you use your energy in the same way that you think about how your paychecks come in and how they go out. So some of your homework for this evening will be to start to look at your balance of energy coming in and energy going out. Energy coming in can look like this: nutrition, sleep, self-care, whatever that means for you. It might mean going to the hair salon. It might mean reading. It might mean visiting and having a really nice conversation with somebody. It might mean getting your nails done or having a massage. It might mean take a bath. It could mean a nice special food treat. So anything that feels good, it's feeding you on some level emotionally, mentally, physically, that's energy coming in. And then energy going out is the opposite. It's what do you do in your day that causes energy to go out of you? For me, one of the most energy draining events is honestly driving. I'm exhausted when I have to drive around the city and do errands or whatever. So because I pay a lot of attention to my energy budget, I won't schedule errands at the same time that I have something else energy draining, such as a thing at work or I don't know, I have company coming and I have to make up the beds, or I have a whole bunch of laundry to do, things that drain my energy. I don't want to do a ton of those in one day. I really want to space out during my week the things that are going to drain energy so that I'm always ahead of the game and not operating at a deficit. We don't want to operate at a deficit because that is when we are most vulnerable to fall apart. Operating at a deficit means we are strung out. It means we don't have enough resources within ourselves to take care of our basic needs, really. We might be too tired to cook a good meal, or we might be too tired to seek a conversation, or we might be too tired to fend off or stave off a big emotional breakdown in public. When we're in intensive care mode, like we are when we're in acute grief, we have to pay attention to that. That's why people actually go into intensive care. They need somebody else to be monitoring their vitals and keeping them going and keeping them safe. So we aren't, in that situation, but we're in a similar situation energetically. So I want you to really think about that. And don't underestimate the power of course, your faith, your connections to nature, all of that as places that energy come in as well. Difficult friendships, complicated friendships, friendships where we provide more of the energy, more of the giving than the receiving, those relationships might have to be put on hold. You might want to think about that when you are reviewing your energy budget, creating and looking at your energy budget. Think about the friendships and relationships you have, and think about whether they give you energy or they take energy, so that you can make decisions about the ways in which you spend time with people as well. So that's your homework. I want you to spend some time in your journal on thinking about your energy, maybe thinking also about your brain, your neurotransmitters, and how you are feeling about ways that you're behaving. There's might be some things I haven't mentioned, or stories or experiences that you've had that are unique to your situation regarding behavior, energy, your experience with you being you. I'd love to hear those. So please do like you did before and go to our private Facebook group, Roadmap 60 Hearts Roadmap Through Grief. It's our place to connect with each other and to share and to hear and be heard. And I'm very interested in hearing you. Remember to think about things that are going well, so that you can keep building a positive outlook to the best of your ability right now. And when we meet next, we will be on a live chat call again. You'll receive the link in your email to join the call, and I'm looking forward to that. It's another opportunity to share and talk and be heard, and I can at that time address very specific questions and needs that you might have. So thank you very much for attending video 2, and I look forward to the next time I see you. Thanks so much.